for joining us for our Chamber Connection podcast. Thanks to our friends at Speakeasy, we are here for the next 52 weeks, bringing you guests from around our community, elected officials, business owners, folks doing great work here in Macomb County. So, sit back, take a listen, and we hope you'll join us every week for our Chamber Connection. Hi, thanks for joining us and tuning in today for our next edition of the Chamber podcast. My guest today is longtime Chamber member and owner and president of Maven IT, Aaron McCarthy. Aaron, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Stacy.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, we like to find people. I always like to team up with people that are way smarter than I am in areas that are not in my wheelhouse. So, Aaron, we're happy to have Maven on our team at the Chamber. We're excited to work with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in and around the area, went to high school in the area, Chippewa Valley, go Big Reds, and went to college, Oakland University, a degree in MIS, which is the business side of IT. Then went directly into do my master's at Walsh College, which they had a program at the time called Business Information Technology. I was the second group to go through that program, which was really cool at the time. So I graduated from there and been, in the industry of technology for my entire career. So I've never deviated from that, but worked with different companies, obviously. And then over time, had some executive positions and whatnot, but decided I really wanted to get out of the day-to-day executive type position. And I really wanted to start a business of my own so that I could help business owners, especially small, medium businesses, reach their full technology potential.
So tell us about Maven IT. How long has it been around, where it's at, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so we will be 4 years coming up in May.
Oh,
so
right.
we're excited for that.
I like parties. I'll throw a fourth birthday party.
I think we're going to need to do that for sure. So, but yeah, been around for 4 years. Started out, it was just myself and my desk and my computer, and that was it. And started to kick it off. Now, the real, what's the reason why did I start Maven IT? And I was in the telecom industry for, 8 years, 10 years or so. And we were deploying telephone service. And I was, in that whole industry. And, VoIP phone service was the big thing, of course. So, telephone service over the internet, essentially. So every business needs a telephone, that kind of thing. You're going to use the VoIP phone service because the old POTS style is what they call it, plain old telephone service, is like the old wire coming in off the line from AT&T, right? We were all used to that. So what's happened over time is the carriers don't want to have POTS service anymore because they have to have these central offices that support all these lines, and it's a lot of cost. So with the internet, if we can push other things over the internet, like phone service, it's much more cost effective for them. So you're seeing this big push into VoIP, right? So, and I'm at these telecoms during this time, and what I'm seeing is, okay, we're trying to get phone service deployed, but it's really difficult. Why is it difficult? Because these small, medium businesses don't have an IT staff that will support them to help them, essentially deploy the VoIP service. So we get really weird things happening, choppy voice, different things are happening, and there's nobody to troubleshoot. So I saw this gap of there's nobody to help support it. That seems like a pretty, lucrative business to go in and, help these companies do this. But to do it at a price point they can afford it, but then give them the service that, your bigger companies would have. So enterprise types of services is what I was aiming for. So I said, okay, it's time to do it. Let's do it. So I did. And started growing, was great, doing firewall service, Wi-Fi, all these things that businesses needed. Of course, layering on top of voice service as well. Then, of course, as we grow over the years, we started to do security cameras, door access, these types of things as well, in addition to our, desktop support. So what it really boils down to is we're a company that will help you support your entire business on the technology side. So now that leaves you to worry about your day-to-day, essentially.
Sure. I think of the last 2 years, the pandemic changed the way we all worked. What were you seeing with some of the businesses that you work for? What technology needs changed for them? What did they need? What did they not have? What were they not ready for? And then what were they able to do?
Yeah, and that's, wow, there's a lot there. Let's unpack
right?
that.
Sure.
Yeah, no, so first of all, it's just being able to go remote in the first place, right? So when we had the mandates that, hey, you need to stay home, you can't go anywhere, got a lot of phone calls. How do we do this? So obviously, you need to keep you want to keep your network secured at your home base, right? And that's kind of secondary because they need to just communicate, right? So email, security on the actual desktop, phones, right? Especially phones. Do we have a physical phone? Do we have a soft phone? we could help deploy that literally overnight. So we can port in phone numbers from other carriers. We can take that on our platform. We can even, what we had to do for some customers was just forward that number to a cell phone, just so they'd have access to the number.
Just the bottom line, basic answer the call.
Just how do I get my phone calls now that I
Yeah.
can't go into the office? So we'd help with that. Then we'd work on a home migration, right? Okay, you need, desk phones at home. Do you want a soft phone? Soft phone meaning piece of software that's on your laptop, or maybe it's on your cell phone. Your phone rings, it rings the soft phone, also rings the desk phone, whatever configuration you're most comfortable with. So once we get beyond that hurdle, now we're looking at, okay, you've got 5 employees, let's say, for example, do we know that that data is secured, right, across all those 5 employees? Well, yeah, I'm using, my home Comcast router with the Wi-Fi. Well, that's great, but, anybody can hack that, right? So we don't want to go that route. So what do we do to secure it? Well, we've got some options. But the best one is let's put a small router at your home and let's make sure we have secured Wi-Fi and let's connect to that network for all your business data, and keep the gaming systems and that separate from that so that we can prioritize the business traffic over the pleasure traffic, essentially. So, we went in that direction for sure. A lot of people asking about that.
I know the chamber, we learned a lot. Like we had to adjust quickly. We were lucky we had a VPN installed.
Yes.
So we could access files, access data. We did all of that like 6 weeks before, the shutdowns happened. So we were insanely lucky. But we learned a lot. I remember someone saying to me, well, you sent all your employees home to work. You assume their internet was secure.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't ask.
Right.
I didn't even think to ask those questions.
You didn't know what you didn't know. I mean, essentially, right?
So I think a lot of business owners were in that same boat about,
Totally.
So what do you think people learned? Do you think that there was a lot of things, what did a business owner learn from that they need to have now in place moving forward?
Well, it's kind of, what we talk to our customers about is a disaster recovery. And it kind of goes into that because it's not, it's a type of disaster, but it's one where you still have access to everything, right? It could be worse, and that whole thing, we learned about your data. Where does your data live? Is it in the cloud or is it in a local server? For your case, you had a local server, so you needed a VPN to actually access that data.
Sure.
What we're learning is, or what everybody's learning is, you can get a lot of that data out to the cloud and not have to worry about it. One example would be your email going through Office 365. You don't have before we'd have a physical server on site that would serve that. We don't need to do that anymore. We can have Office 365 at a fraction of the cost. But then talk about files that you're sharing between everybody. Well, now we'll put it out on OneDrive or SharePoint, which is a file sharing service. Now you don't need that VPN. You eliminate that VPN. You eliminate users saying, hey, I can't get in. I don't know. Where's my password? Who resets it? Now you have to wait for somebody to reset that password. We don't need that anymore. And you can access on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, on, anywhere essentially. So I think, we learned a lot about where does my data live? What do I need to do to access it when I'm not physically in the office? And that, I think over time that a lot of people, they want that flexibility. They need to have that flexibility.
Sure. We talk a lot about data. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about just, everywhere for the last couple of years has been cybersecurity.
Yep.
And keeping our data safe. I can tell you that, my team gets at least one phishing email a day saying that, I'm sending them an email and it's coming from Stacy and, I need $500 in gift cards purchased or something along those lines.
Yep.
What, how can first of all, what are some of the biggest issues you're seeing in the cybersecurity world these days? And then I guess my follow-up would be, how can businesses make sure that they are well prepared? Yeah,
so the big thing, like you're saying, is the phishing emails. They've gone up exponentially since COVID, of course. So really what it comes down to is training of your employees, right? So you have all these different emails coming in and, just training and saying, hey, look at with the from address. What email address is it coming? Does it look legit? Does it look off? Is that, Stacy's email? Is it not? That kind of thing. So that's the first thing. Then the request, is it really legit? Is that something that my boss would ask me for kind of thing, right? It's, we get in that mode of we're just grinding through day to day, but to stop and pay attention. So what we have to help combat that or help train is phishing simulations, essentially. So we get on your email server, we insert these messages, and then, from time to time, it'll send messages and we can see who clicks on them. And then when somebody does click on them, it's a training opportunity, right? So they click, can watch a video, and it makes you more aware. And obviously it was harmless at the time, but, it kind of helps us know who needs the training, what kind of training do we need? Do we need to switch it up a little bit? But that's a huge part of it right there, just the simulation aspect.
So not for a scare tactic, but, if somebody does click on a non-training phishing email, what can happen?
Yeah, a lot of bad things,
Yeah.
right? So what can happen is, and what you see a lot is encryption. So you'll click the email, and maybe nothing happens right then, and that's fine. But maybe it saves something on your server, and maybe it enables a backdoor essentially, so that whoever's phishing can get into your data. But well, a lot of times what we see is you click the link, instantaneously your machine comes up, shows you a screen that says, "Hey, pay me this much Bitcoin, and we'll give you the keys back." And we've seen varying degrees of success with that. Sometimes they'll pay and
Mm.
they'll get the information, sometimes they won't, mixed bag. But there's a really great way to combat that, and that's just by having your disaster recovery plan up to date. You have your data backed up so that if you would get encrypted, it wouldn't be so bad. But another aspect of that, if you kind of level it up to the next level, is they click it, it encrypts the machine, but then it pushes out to the rest of the machines on the network, right? So we have things that can combat that as well, aside from backup, but we want to try to stop it, right? So we have something called endpoint disaster and recovery, EDR. So what that does is it's like an antivirus. I call
Mhm.
it antivirus 2.0, where it's always running. So antivirus typically, traditionally, has been reactive. EDR is proactive, and then if it sees something on your machine running that normally isn't, then it will spring into effect. So it'll see this encryption type activity coming. It will shut down and disconnect your computer from the network so it cannot spread to any other machines. So,
And this happens. This isn't,
oh yeah,
this
this
it happens
happens.
to businesses daily,
Yeah, no, and that's a good
and it
point.
can be expensive.
Well, and I get a lot of people saying, "Well, this only happens to
Mm.
big companies, with all these employees." No, it used to be that, absolutely, but now more of recent, and especially since COVID, you're seeing it happen to very small companies. I mean, they know you've got data and you need your data, and they can, some people do pay the ransoms, so it can be, good business for them, unfortunately.
And I think one of the biggest things too is the public relations effect that comes into that. If you are a
Huge,
business whose information that's been hacked,
huge.
it can be tough for you to recover from that.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of have to go into the cybersecurity. The cybersecurity insurance
Yeah,
piece of it, right? Because actually, we do sell policies as well, but that does have a PR aspect to it, right? So that you are covered. So yeah, because that could kill your business. I
right.
mean, it really could.
And it's not a scare tactic. I think it's looking to tell people what options are out there for them. I mean, I'm very, very comfortable telling you that this is not something I know well.
Hmm.
But it's always something that's, top of mind because you want to be secure. We have data. The chamber has data,
Hmm.
data information, like our member information. We have, staff that work on computers, and this can happen to anyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
So, what are some other services that are new and that can keep people safe and
well,
businesses safe?
yeah, I mean, EDR for sure is a
Sure.
big upgrade, right, over antivirus. That's where everything's going. It started, and the way these technology services work is they start at the enterprise with your much larger customer or much larger, data users, right, or companies that have a lot more revenue. So it starts there, trickles down into the small, medium businesses, then it trickles down to the consumer. So you're going to start seeing that it's in the small, medium space now. EDR
Okay.
will soon go to the regular desktops, consumers. So that's one aspect. The second, another aspect is firewalls and Wi-Fi.
Mm.
You know, People think, okay, I get a firewall, I install it, I'm good to go, and that's how it used to be, right? But everything's constantly changing. So now it's you have a firewall, but now you have to update it constantly, right? So I'd say
Yep.
every couple of weeks, every month.
Mine updates every month.
Yeah, so it does it. It does, does that. But now we're also putting more features into the firewall, right? So we're doing more proactive threat management, that kind of thing, and we can actually go in and see, what's hitting your firewall, what's going on. Are there active things happening? But it'll shut them down, obviously. So that's a big thing. The other thing is on the Wi-Fi. Obviously, when people come in, you have, guests, customers, whatever. You want to have guest Wi-Fi, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, what people don't realize, hey, I'll give them, the Comcast modem, Wi-Fi, guest Wi-Fi, right? No big deal. But the thing is, that's not sandboxed out. That's not separated from
Mm.
your regular Wi-Fi. So essentially, if they had a virus or something, it could spread to your computers on your network. So it's very important to keep those separate. So
How often should folks be changing passwords?
password wise, yeah, that's a great question there. Often, really. So I think it comes down to using a password management
Gonna say
system.
you've got a great tool
Yeah,
for this.
more than anything, right? So, because if you create that password, most people, they'll create the same password for everything because they want to remember it, right?
Sure.
But, if you would use a password, even a password generator to create your password so that you would probably wouldn't even know your password, right? Unless you had this password manager, that's really the best because you create a very complex password. So really, in the grand scheme of things, you're trying to build your security wall taller than the person next to you, essentially, is how it works. You build it taller, the hacker goes on to the next place. They want the easy stuff, right? And there's plenty of easy out there. So if you, have your technology in order, build your wall taller, you're
Sure.
essentially, helping yourself.
And I think a lot of this is you train people to be proactive. You train
Yes.
people to have some of these things in place first. I'm guessing the customers you work with,
Oh yeah.
because nobody wants to be reactive in these situations.
Totally. It's terrible, right? So, it's really just having your security baseline.
Hmm.
So when we bring on a new customer, we talk about the security baseline. Do you have on all of your machines, do you have, EDR? Are they backed up? Are they patched? And patching is another big thing. Windows will patch, iOS with Apple will patch itself, but it doesn't do it consistently. So yeah, you need some help there. So if you patch, you back up, you have antivirus, that's the first step. Then on your when you're in the office or when you're at home, do you have some kind of firewall to filter the bad traffic, right? And on your Wi-Fi, do you have the sandboxed guest network, right? So you've got that. Then it really comes down to your email side. Then are you backed up there? They think, well, wait, I'm in the cloud. I have Office 365, Google Workspace, whatever. I must be backed up. Well, yeah, they'll back you up to the minimum acceptable, kind of
Limit.
retention. Yeah, exactly. So there's another, you need to have a more extensive backup than that. So are you backed up there? Because just play the worst case scenario, right? If you lose everything, or who knows,
Right.
flood, cyber, whatever happens, threats, can you pick up and can you continue your business? Because if you can't continue business, obviously, it's not going to be good.
And I think those are things that it's always going to happen to somebody else. It's never going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I think we think about that in a lot of tragic and bad situations. But
Yep.
again, it's being more proactive and prepared. I mean, just
Yes.
preparing people, educating folks is not a bad thing.
No, not at all. And I'll tell you, if you do these things, just these basic things, if you do them and you're on top of it, whether it's with a company or you do it yourself internally, whatever the case, like I said, your wall is taller and you're probably not going to have the issues.
Every time I talk to Aaron, I change passwords. Like, I just want y'all to know that it's one of those things, like, every time we talk, I'm like, I think I should change my credit card password. Maybe I need to change my Facebook password.
Well, I'll tell you, when we bring in new customers, we'll do a no charge scan, we call it a dark web scan, right? And we'll go through and,
Oh boy.
there's been a lot of different websites hacked over the years, right? So let's talk about like LinkedIn, for
Yeah.
example. They've been hacked many times, and we know it, and that's a thing. But the thing is, we'll go in, do your dark web scan. It'll actually, a lot of times we can actually get the password that you used at that time when it was hacked. And, it's out there on the dark web and people can buy it, whatever. And we'll show some customers or potential customers the password and their jaws will drop because that's the password they're using right now. And not only for LinkedIn, for their bank, for, everything essentially. So
you brought up a really good point. When a third-party website is hacked, we get that information often, right?
Yep.
You will use LinkedIn as an example because it's very public that they
Yep.
have been infiltrated a few times.
Yep.
What are the potential risks for a user like myself? And then what should I be doing?
Yeah, so really it's that they're going to get that password, but what happens is they're going to try it against, different, sources, right? So like I said, your bank, your email, those types of things. So that's the biggest risk. So really that's where the password manager comes into place. Or, if you're good and you can remember these passwords, great, change them and, write them down.
I don't think I have been off for a couple days now. I don't think I'm remember my passwords when I go back to work.
You don't want that, and you really don't want to write it down either and put it on your keyboard, because that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, you don't want to do that. So just changing the passwords and making sure that it's secured and that, you're rotating passwords every so often. And the password manager will help you with that aspect.
So one of the things too is that I've seen lately is that, using social media sites, Instagram or Facebook, is that folks, let's say Instagram pages will be, their password will be hacked and they close them down.
Mm-hmm.
So for a business, that can be very detrimental. There's a
Yep.
business that I work with, an online retailer, and their entire Instagram was shut down over the
Wow.
weekend. They lost their accessibility to it. Talk about like what things people can put in place with I know password management, but like those are some big ramifications
Yeah.
if someone gets a hold of your Instagram or Facebook or
Especially if your business is really dependent on it, right?
Right.
Which a lot of businesses are because social is a big deal, right? So I think it really comes down to who are you using to help manage your social, right? And, is it an outside company? Is it internal? But then it's also having secure controls over that. So, that manager of the social has access, right? But now think about it in the fact of maybe you're using some tool, and I don't know what the latest tools are, but I know there's like Hootsuite and
Sure.
there's these different ones out there. So now they have access to all of your passwords, right? So now if they get hacked, right now they're going to have access to that information. So again, passwords are really a big thing, but really,
Sure.
I'll tell you, two-factor authentication is huge. If you can turn on two-factor for any web app that you have or any app at all, do it. It's going to now talk about, raising your wall taller. That raises you really tall because now in order to get access to your account, not only do they have to know your password, they have to have that app, that authenticator app that shows that code, right? So that's a much harder thing to do than to just get your password, because we know passwords are compromised all the time. So
Yep.
two-factor is huge.
And I know that on a lot of these social media sites, you can install that
Oh, yeah.
two-factor authentication.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's vital, because the last thing
It
you
is.
want is, if you rely on social media, is for it to disappear one day.
Social media, your email, your QuickBooks. I mean, the apps go on and on. Whatever it is your company uses day to day to perform business, you need to turn two-factor on. It's just no way around that fact.
And it's not a hard it's easy.
Typically, yeah, it's really easy. You go into your settings, into the account, you flip the button for two-factor. It'll show you a QR code, which is that little square, black and white thing. You bring up your application, whether it's Authy or Microsoft or Google. They all have authenticator apps. You hold up your camera, and it takes a picture of that little QR code, and then gives you the 6-digit PIN there, and you just pop it in. Says you're good to go.
Personally, I
Done.
turned it on my Instagram page the other day after this company, said
Oh, yeah.
that they lost it. I turned it on
Yep.
myself. They sent me a text to my phone. I plugged it
Yeah.
in. I was good to go.
It's easy, right? And that whole thing, yeah, got to do
Because
it.
we always learn things, right, from somebody else.
Mhm.
In these reactive situations, we learn something.
For sure.
So, we mentioned that Maven's a longtime chamber member. What's a reason that you guys joined the chamber?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I had a previous business called So Buzz Me some years back, before I got in the whole telecom scope of things. I was laid off from a job working with a mechanical contractor. I was doing IT for them, and it was around the holidays, and was not getting any bites on my resume and whatnot. So I said, I've been doing this on the side, helping local businesses that I knew, friends and family of mine. So let me try to take it in and move it up. So I did. I came in, and that's when I got into my brag group and everything, and went through that whole process. And it really helped me, see, open my eyes to the business world and what could really be, and how do you generate leads, and how do I meet other people just in general, right? And that was just a huge boost. So obviously, I ended up going into telecom post that. But when I formed Maven IT, the very first decision I made when I opened my doors, and we had, obviously May is when we started it, but I started with it full time in August following. And there was no doubt I was going to become a chamber member and join back to my brag group. And it's great because, like I said, it's just being able to meet all these different businesses. And obviously, pre-COVID, all the different events that we would have. And now I know we're finally getting back to it, which
We're
is
very
great.
happy.
I can't wait to get back in and start seeing people like we used to. Looking very forward to it. So just, meeting the people and getting to know the community, huge. And it's helped my business grow to where it is today.
And you recently, this past fall, joined us on the board of directors. And why was that important to you?
Yeah. Well, I figure because the chamber helped me so much, I need to help people in the chamber. And if I can help, that's why I started my business in the first place, is just to help other people. But if I can help other businesses like the chamber help me, I am more than happy to give back.
I love talking to young entrepreneurs because, the passion that you have for this. You saw a hole, you saw a need, and it was like, I'm going to develop something that, can fill that need for our community. And I think there's many small businesses throughout Macomb County, throughout this area, and you're nationwide now. You've got businesses
Yes.
throughout the country who have been have felt that need and have, you've been there to help them and assist them.
Totally.
So we appreciate it. Thank you for joining me today. We appreciate
Yes.
having you here. Tell us where Maven IT is and how people can find you.
So Maven IT, look us up at mavenitinc.com. On social, Maven IT Inc. Find us out there, and be glad to help out.
Fantastic. Thank you for what you do for the chamber and for the small business community here. Thanks for joining us today and tuning in, and we will see you next time. Tuning in to the Chamber Connection. Be sure to check out information on the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce website, our Facebook page, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We look forward to you connecting with us and tuning in next time.